Hello and welcome. In this lecture, I'm going to walk you through a brief overview of Agile methodologies in the hopes that you'll be able to apply some of these methodologies to your Capstone project, which I believe everybody is working on individually. It is possible to apply Agile methodologies to individual projects as well as projects of many people. So let's get started with an overview of what is Agile. So Agile started. I'm not going to present using the presentation tool because I have many tabs here that I want to be able to use. So hopefully this is coming across well. So I'm just going to go through these slides like that, like they are. So what is Agile? So Agile is really it's just a set of principles that were created by a group of people to improve how software was developed. And if you go to, I have a website on this slide, agilemanifesto.org, and I have a picture of it, you'll be able to see, you'll see the Agile Manifesto. And the core of the Agile Manifesto is right there on that first page. If you scroll down a little bit on that site, there's another link to the 12 principles of Agile, and I highly encourage you to go and read all these principles. They're really designed to streamline the process of software development. Now let's take a step back from that. These principles, these core ideas, can be used on any project that you're working on. It just turns out that they work really well for many types of projects. So whether you're doing a website or a video or some other kind of capstone project, you will be able to use some of these ideas in helping you manage how you do your project. So I'm going to go over these core values here on this page. So we'll go to the next slide. The core principles, and I've put them here in a table to emphasize that the side we want versus the side we don't want. So we do emphasize, and this really relates to sort of the working on teams. We really emphasize individuals and interactions over processes and tools. What does that mean? That means it's better to go talk to somebody face to face than it is to create a process by which you communicate via a third-party medium to a person and they communicate back to you. It's much better to go and talk to them in person. We emphasize working software over comprehensive documentation. So whether this is working software or a working website or a working video or like a piece of a video or some piece of the project you're working on, we'd rather have something that works in front of us than, say, documentation about how it will work, or some other kind of documentation. We also emphasize collaboration. So in this case, you'll be looking for feedback from your advisor, and we really want you to get as much feedback as possible. So when we work, we call something the MVP. We'll talk about that later, the minimal viable product. At any given stage, you're going to have something that works, some part of your project, not the final version, but a version somewhere on the way to the final version that works. And we can take that to the advisor, to other people to get feedback on how we might alter our project, change it, enhance it, whatever the feedback is. And the last part is responding to that change. So, you need to be agile in Agile. So you need to be able to respond to things. And the beauty of Agile is you can respond to them very quickly versus the traditional waterfall approach to software, which you can go look up. If you go look up Google waterfall software development, you will learn everything you need to know about waterfall. Basically, It is get everything, all the requirements up front, build it, and then show it to the person you want to show it to. The problem with that is that requirements tend to change as you go through them. So Agile is all about responding to change in iterations, and we'll go through that. So these are the core ideas of Agile, but we're going to try to apply these more broadly to any project that you might be working on. So what do you need to start? So whatever your project is, you're going to need a prioritized list of work. So, and we're going to go through some tools a little bit later on how you might create a prioritized list of work. But basically, if you're going your project, you have a project, and I'm assuming you have a project proposal of a statement of work, what it is you're going to do. You can use that as a starting point, and you can start to break it down into the pieces that you're going to need. And in this case here, I'm using the example of, I just kind of tried to make it sort of generic by saying, feature A, feature B, feature C. This is just a list of work, a list of things that you're going to do. And each one of these features can stand on its own. So you can build feature A, or this could be task A, or task 1, or item 1. It can be anything you want. It's really just representing a block of work. And item A will stand on its own, and I'll show you that in a second. But you build your list, and you can put things in your list that you think you might want. You can put things in your list that you know you're going to need, and anywhere in between. And then you prioritize that list. So you know you're going to have to do feature A, feature B, and feature C. You might not do feature E or F, and again, then you might decide later on that you want to do feature H before feature E. That's fine. You can adjust priority as you go, but you need to start with this list and in a priority, and then start working through it one of these items at a time. So what does that look like? So here's our list again, and I'm going to do a concrete example of this. This is just sort of high-level overview. So in this example, I've started working on my project, and I have done the first 2 features. So here's my list of work. I worked on feature A. So my loop here is the iteration loop. I've iterated, and the first pass through I did feature A, and the result of feature A was this triangle. Right? That's great, because this is now a finished thing. This triangle, I can go take this to my advisor and say, look at my triangle, or whatever it is. It's just a placeholder for the thing that you are building, right? So this could be the home page of your site. This could be the intro to your video. This could be whatever your project is. It's really just sort of the beginning of it, the foundation of it. Get feedback. All right, I can use that as a standalone thing to take and get feedback on. Then I come back and I build feature B. The feature B just builds on feature A here. So I've tried to add a base to my triangle, and unfortunately the shapes here just didn't work out as well as I wanted them to, but you can get the point. I'm building a little pyramid, and I'm building it by adding pieces as I go. And I would just continue with this. I would continue with feature C, D, E, and F, and all along the way I have something to show. At any given point, I can stop and say, you know what, this is done. I say I'm on feature 126. It's getting toward the end of the semester. I need to turn something in. That's fine, because at any point in time I can stop and say, this project is done. I've finished it at this point. I have a working product at this stage. I have a nice slide a little bit later that really, I think, really brings this out. Um, so hopefully that will become clear a little bit later. It may be a little, this may be a little abstract right now and a little hard to understand. Hopefully it'll become clearer as we go here. All right, so we're going to work through this list. We're going to iterate. And normally in an Agile project, you would have these iterations would be, some period of time, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever they are, because you'd have a team of people working on, multiple sets of features, and it would you sort of time box how much work you were going to get done in a certain amount of time. Because you're working on it individually, it's just how fast can you move through these things, right? We're not committing to any body of work as they do in Scrum, which is an Agile methodology. This is more of a Kanban approach, which is we have a prioritized list. We can reprioritize that list at any time. We're going to have items that are in progress, and we're going to have items that are done. And this loop is really just to emphasize that we're working through the list. All right, so let's get to some examples, because I think examples are going to be helpful. So you need to create your plow, right? Your plow is your prioritized list of work, and work through it. And that's the basic here. That's the basic thing. As an individual working on a project, you don't have the outside. You don't have sort of other people that you need to work with to get things done. It's really up to you. So you're playing all the roles in Agile. So you're playing the product owner, you're playing the developer, you're playing the QA person, you're playing, every role is you, right? So and after you've completed an item, right, in your backlog, so your plow is also called your backlog, and I think I had that up here, aka backlog. So in Agile, there's this idea of the backlog, and I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. And the backlog is just all the work that you think you need to do, and it's prioritized. I say you think you need to do because you may put things in your backlog that you decide later that, I really don't need this, and that's fine. That's totally okay. Right? There's nothing wrong with that. It's a placeholder for sort of keeping track of, hey, here are the things I know I need to do. So you just start making a list, and then you might put in must-haves, want-to-haves, would be really nice to haves. All those things that sort of creep into projects. You can stick them in your backlog. You just may never get to them. It helps you organize your project. All right, so at each stage of your project, you're going to have the minimum. You're going to create a minimum viable product, an MVP. You can apply that to any project you're working on. If it's a website, it may be that you created the homepage. If it's a video, like I said before, maybe you created the intro or the ending or some part of the video that you can sort of say, this is this section of the work. And as it stands, I'm going to call this part done. All right, so you can take that to somebody, get feedback on it, and move on to the next item in your list, right, in your backlog. So here's the slide that I was referring to before about the MVP. I think this is a fantastic slide. This is what you don't want to do is the top here, right? If we want to build a car, if that is our ultimate goal, we don't want to build a wheel and then two wheels and then a body. We want to build something that the user can use at every step of the way. So, and this is great. So we want to build a car ultimately, but we may start out by building a skateboard. And then we may build a scooter. And then we may build a bicycle and a motorcycle and then a car. But in every step of the way, I think this I did not create this slide. It was created by another person in my group. And but I love it. I think it's very useful. In any step of the way, I have something I can use, something that will accomplish a goal that I have for the project. And that, I think, is great. Because if you run out of time and you end up at the motorcycle, that's okay. It's okay because you have a completed thing at that point. It may not have everything you want, but it has a lot of what you need. And the goal of Agile is to kind of help you get rid of the noise in projects, or one of the goals anyways, to, the saying that people say about Microsoft Word, I don't know if you've heard this, but one of the things I've heard many times is that I think that it's something like 80% of the features in Microsoft Word only like 10% of the people use. There's really a core set of features that people use, and everything else is really not relevant to most of us. And you want to try to avoid building your project that way, because you'll end up running out of time and you won't have anything completed. So this is kind of a once-over Agile, very, very lightly view here. There are sort of two big methodologies out there in the world. There are more, but the two big ones are Scrum, which you may have heard of, and Kanban, which you may or may not have heard of. And I'm not going to cover those because they don't really apply to you in the project that you're doing. But I would encourage you to go and Google Scrum or Kanban. Kanban is Kan space Ban. And at the end, I have some resources for you that will give you an idea of what those are. But what I'm trying to do here is boil down the sort of essence of Agile to something that you can use for your Capstone project. So let's get to a concrete example, because I think there's nothing like an example to help us do it. So I'm going to use this product called Trello. And Trello is free. So any of you can just go in and start using Trello. It's totally free. I use it where I work. I use it in my personal life. I use it in a lot of places. It's very useful. And the first thing we're going to do, I'm going to go to my Trello board. So let's see. So here I've created a sample project for us. But what I'll do real quick here is I'll go through the process of creating a new board. So what you'll do when you come and log into Trello, you won't have any boards, or there may be a default board they give you. But you're going to go into Trello and you're going to say create a new board, and give it a title, example board, and that's it. I'm just going to say create. So now I have this example board, and on these boards I can create lists. So I'm going to create a list up here called backlog. All right, and I'm going to save it. So I have a list. This is my plow. Right? This is my plow. This is my prioritized list of work, my backlog. I'm going to create another list called in progress. And you can name these columns whatever you want. I advise you to use names similar to the way I'm doing it, because I think it's very clear. And in progress, I'm going to say in progress, but I'm also going to do something called, I'm going to put this little bit of text up here just from my own reference, because in some Agile boards they let you do this. It's part of the software, but in Trello it's not. So I'm just going to put it in here. And what this is called is a work in progress, WIP, work in progress equals 2. And I'll tell you what that means in a second. I'm going to add one more list, and this is going to be my done list. and then I'm going to say, okay, I have 3 columns. Now you can have more columns if you want. So you can create as many as you want. I advise you to keep the list small. Don't have too many columns because it'll get hard to manage. And what I've done here by saying work in progress equals 2, so this is a mental note really. It's a reminder for me that I only want to ever have 2 things active in this column at one time. All right, so that's how easy it is to just set up a quick board in Trello to manage my project. All right, so that's done. I'm going to go to the board that I set up. So I set up this board for a basic project, and I added some features to the backlog. And normally these would be user stories. These are in Agile, these are called user stories. And if we go out and I Google, so if I say Agile user story, there's a whole bunch of information about how to create user stories. And user stories usually start with, as a user, I want to be able to go to a web page and see information about something like that. It's as a whatever. It's as a this role. Let's look at Agile Alliance is a good site. So if I go to Agile Alliance, let's see, user stories. In general, this is a very good site because you can click on what is Agile, link to the Agile Manifesto, the 12 principles. I just want to see some examples of user stories here. Incremental software delivery. Everything you read about Agile, just take a step back from it and say, right, I may not be applying this to software development, but I can apply it to the project I'm working on. So whenever they say we're releasing software, we're, anything like that, you just want to just kind of mentally do the shift that, oh no, I'm applying this to the video that I'm creating. So story map, task board. Task board is our Trello board. All right, let me find a better example of user stories here. User story. Well, examples. Let's see. I don't know. Mountain Goat Software is another place I've gone to find information about. Here you go. Here's the format of a user story. As a type of user, I want some goal so that something can happen. So that's the typical user story. And a user story, here's a good one. As a user, I can back up my entire hard drive. Right? It's a great user story. It says, who do I want to do this for? What is the purpose of it? And and here's the reason. It's great. So let's go back to the Trello board that I created for this example. I didn't use that format. I could have. So here are these lists, same lists we created before. I created cards, so now you can see here, add a card. And these are just cards I've created. So if I say add a card, it gives me this little drop down where I can add a new card. So I'll write a user story as we might see one. So as a user, I'm going to go and just make sure I reference the format. Right, as a user, I want to be able to, oh wait a minute, I want to, let me get this right. I want to upload files So I can submit assignments, something like that. And this is a very small amount of text here to sort of describe it. So what you may end up doing, for example, this first user story, I just wrote create a basic project homepage. The user stories in this case really apply to you because this is your project. And really this is about how we adapt these Agile principles to apply to one person working on one project by themselves. And you could certainly write them as a user, and I would say great, go for it. If you want to do that, if it helps you do that, absolutely do that, but you're not limited to do that. If I want to add something to this, create a basic project homepage, I might add some notes to help me remember that, say this is a minimum page with some basic text and styles. No need for the carousel or featurettes. Well, I'm just going to say featurettes, even though it says it's spelled wrong. You'll see why. So I'm going to send that. That's done. So now I know there's a comment on that first one. So if I need to look into this and see what's going on, I can say, oh, that's right. I told myself this was this. Or it might be I got feedback from my advisor to do X, Y, Z. Right? That's great. You might decide, hey, I want to go back and leave a note to myself about the feedback I got on that, so that I can make that adjustment at some point. So now let's see. I am going to start to work on this project. Right? So I've got a list of work. Now your list would be much longer, or it might not be, but it could break down to some very simple items depending upon your project. I'm going to go ahead and move this to in progress, and I can just drag this over and move it right into in progress. So create a basic project homepage. And I don't need a carousel and I don't need featurettes. My project is going to be a website that is a marketing website, and I know I'm going to want a carousel, and I know I'm going to want some featurettes on there. So let's say I started to code this project. So boom, what do you know? Here's that first story in real life. I've created this web page. It's version 1. That's just what I'm using here, but you would not do that. If you are doing some kind of a software project, a web project, I would highly encourage you to use a version control system like GitHub to manage the versioning of your software. It makes it a lot easier to work through these, to work through this kind of workflow. If you're doing something like video, come up with a workflow that works so that you are able to save things in such a way that you can continuously build upon them without, if you're working on the next feature, you don't want to lose the feature you have, so you want to make sure you can always roll back to a previous version. So in this case here, I have created this basic web page. I didn't put any content in here. That's, if this is something that you're doing, you can flesh out the content, and at any given stage, well, once I've finished this one story, all right, so I've moved this to work in progress. I move this here. My work in progress limit is 2. I only have one story here, so that's fine. I've created this page. It works. It does everything it's supposed to do. This is now a fully functional piece of work. I could show this to somebody and get feedback on it. And the value of that is tremendous, because I honestly, to create this basic structure, this first story shouldn't take you very long to do. So you're able to get something that works in front of people very quickly to get feedback and to incorporate any changes into the next version, right? So Agile methodology becomes a very powerful tool for working on projects in that way. So let's continue. So okay, so I've done this. Let's say I'm waiting for some feedback on this. Well, let's see. So let's say I've gotten the feedback, and here I've put the feedback in my comments. I've incorporated the feedback. I'm going to now move this to done. And I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to take this next card and move it over to work in progress. And I'm decided I'm going to take this card to move it to work in progress. And I'm thinking, because today I'm like, oh, I've got all day today. I'm going to move all these things to work in progress. That's a bad idea. And that's where our work in progress limits come into play. So, because you don't know what's going to happen, throughout your day. You may get interrupted, things may happen. You really want to only have things in progress that you're actually working on. So let's say today you're going to try to get to these 2 things. That's great. They can both be work in progress, and that's where our limit of 2 comes in. The software isn't going to prevent me from adding more things here, right? I can add them all. It's just that the lists become the lists become less valuable to me when I move everything to every list all the time. So the value really in this process is you can keep track of your progress on the site or on the project as you go. And at any given stage, you know exactly where you are and what you have left to do. And that's really, really valuable, particularly when you have a limited time to work on your project, like a semester. All right, so you know where your progress is. You can share these boards, by the way. So you could share these boards with your advisor. And you could have a virtual meeting with them, and they could pull up your board, and you could talk about what the items are on the board and how they should move, and whether or not we want to call something done. You can definitely have all those conversations and do it. And that's one of the core principles, is we really want people to be talking versus, I sent you an email and you have to respond to my email. I really want to have that conversation, or as close to it as you can get. So let's look at this now. So I've got these 2 new items, work in progress. Come to my carousel, and I'm on version 2. So I've gone and I've done all this coding, and I've introduced my carousel. So now I have a carousel on my page, and it's great, right? It works. I've got these items in my carousel. Let's pretend I have real content in this carousel at this point. So this is a good stage to stop and say, hey, I want to get some feedback on this. Or if I know what it's supposed to be, I can just say, great, I've done this part. I can call this piece done. In which case, what you want to do is come back to your your list. Maybe you make some notes. Maybe there was something about the carousel that you want to make sure you remember for the future in case something comes up. You could add a note to it, and then you can turn around and move that to done. Now, this is where if I was working with a version control system like GitHub, what I would do is I would have my main repository, I'd have a master, a develop branch, and each one of these would be feature branches. And that's called the Git flow. If you do a Google search for, and I don't mean to get too off topic here, but if you are doing a website project, Git flow is very, very helpful. So you definitely want to go read up on that and how to use that. And if that is something that you are interested in, definitely talk to your advisor, and maybe we could make a video separately that just does that, because I think that's complex enough not to include here. If you're doing a video or some other kind of media project, you definitely want to make sure that you keep versions of your software or versions of your product in such a way that you don't ever destroy the original or destroy the previous version, so that if, for example, you're working on a project, you accidentally deleted it and couldn't get it back, you want to be able to recover. So you definitely want to have backups. Back up everything. I highly recommend. I don't know if this school has any sanctioned software for backups, but using one of the cloud-hosted backup solutions is pretty good. GitHub's good for lots of different kinds of storage. You don't need it just for software. You can store any kind of file in GitHub. I wouldn't say then putting a video up there, because those files can be really huge. For a video, you probably want to have something like some kind of external storage. I don't know, DVDs, create DVDs, or use like CrashPlan or Carbonite or one of those online backup systems. Just some way that you're backing up your data as often as possible. So anyway, this is just my IT side coming through with making sure people have backups. All right, so we're here at version 2, and that's my second story in my backlog. And now I have my site, and my site now has a sorry, I draw a blank. My carousel. That's right. My site now has a carousel, and I can call it. That's great. I can say this story is done. Now, the next story in my list is to add these featurettes. So, okay, I'm going to do this again. I'm going to go back to my site. I'm going to go to version 3. And version 3 of my site has my basic site, has my carousel, but now I have added these featurettes. So, this is me building my site one piece at a time by creating a plan and working through that plan. So, and now this particular instance, I've created the featurettes. I'm going to move those to done. So now I'm in the situation where I have things that I've completed, and I can show those things to people. I can look at those things. I have a list of work that I think I want to do. But now I've gotten some feedback about this page, and let's say one of the feedbacks is people said, I really want to have a drop-down menu option on my menu bar. So I don't have one yet. But I've gotten feedback that that's kind of important. Turns out I did have it in my backlog, but it's not at the top of my backlog, and that's usually how we work. Usually we start, the way that we should be working is, because this is a prioritized list, we work starting from the top and we go down. That's okay. I can take this and I can move it to the top. And if it's what I'm going to work on, I could just move it right over to work in progress, right, from where it was. This is really to help you. And since you're the driver behind this, see, normally in an Agile project, you'd have a product owner that would drive this backlog. Well, that's you. You're the product owner, so you get to decide which things you work on. And prioritizing this list will benefit you, but it doesn't mean you're limited to that. Because you are the product owner, you can take things in any order you really feel that you need to. So don't limit yourself to that, but if you do make it prioritized, it will help you. And this is maybe something an advisor can help you prioritize, because maybe if this is a movie, you want to make sure that you have the beginning of the movie, some scenes in the middle, and some kind of an ending. So maybe you make the beginning one piece of the middle and an ending first, and then you add pieces to the middle, so that at any point in time you have the beginning and you have the ending and you have something in the middle. I don't know much about movies, but I can imagine breaking it down in such a way that at any given point you have something whole that you can look at, and that may be something you would want to prioritize in a backlog, and that really, again, here is just for your own benefit. So I've moved this item up. It became a priority to me. I had to add a drop-down menu. So I go back to my code. I use whatever system I have for version control. I add that new feature in. So I've got a new feature now. I've got this drop-down on the main menu, nav bar. It's wonderful. It's here. So something I didn't talk about that I want to mention now is that I've added this feature here. Before I move it to done, before I move any of these features to done, it doesn't just mean that I've added the code to it. It means that I've tested it. All right, I've gone through some measure of validation for it. When if it's a website, maybe I validate it through the W3C HTML validator. If it's a video, there's probably some other method of validation. If it's a different kind of media project, at some point you need to sort of look at it and say, is this what I really wanted? Great, okay, it is truly what I really wanted, and then you call it done, and then you can move it over to done. So tomorrow, when I come back to, not really tomorrow, but just saying if I'm working on this project, it might be a week, or maybe, hopefully not a week, but it might be a few days before I'm able to get back to working on my project. So I may want to leave notes to myself in some of these stories about why I thought I needed to do this, or anything else you feel like you need to add. So at this point, I've done 4 stories, 2, 3, 4. I started out with a basic web page. Then I built on it, and I had a basic page. I added a carousel. I added some featurettes. And I'm just using this terminology is coming from not Google Bootstrap, sorry. It's coming from Bootstrap. Because I used a basic Bootstrap template here. So that's where some of my terminology is coming from, around carousels and featurettes and such. And I've added a drop-down. So these 4 stories are represented here on this one page. It's great. I'm well on my way to working on this, to getting my project done, and I can see my progress. So it's one thing to just go ahead and force smart yourself into, I'm going to create this page and I'm going to put all these things on it. But if you break down the project into pieces and prioritize those pieces, either with help from your advisor or some other resource, or you just decide, this is the core set of things I want to complete, and everything else is just really gravy, then you can focus on finishing those core things, and then if time permits, you can sort of add the nice to haves at a later time. So hopefully this has been kind of a good intro into how to potentially use some Agile principles for working on your project. I would encourage you to go look at the Agile Manifesto as well, and these are the list of Agile principles. And let's see, I have some other stuff. So this example project, that's what we just looked at. And to wrap this up, I've included a link here. So we use Trello for the board to manage. It's a free tool. There are other free tools out there, and you could just use you could use stickies. A lot of people use sticky notes, and they put them up on a whiteboard, and they just move them across as they need to. That's the sort of non-technical way to do it. There are other tools out there that do this. Trello is just a decent tool, and it's free. There's the Agile Manifesto, which is sort of where all this comes from, but you should not limit yourself to thinking about it in terms of software, right? You should be able to think about applying it to anything. Even things like cleaning the garage can be broken down in an Agile way, which is great. There's you all, by virtue of you being Harvard students, have access to lynda.com. I don't know if you know this. And if you go to lynda.harvard.edu, right, lynda.harvard.edu, you can log in and you can get access to a whole list, an amazing resource of Lynda content. And some of that content, and I'll just show you what a little playlist I put together is. Let's see, Agile at work. Let's see, where's the basic Agile project management? There's a course on Agile project management, and you can take that course. You can go through it. It doesn't take that long, and it will give you a lot more information than I have. I've really just tried to sort of summarize and give you a view of how you might use this for your Capstone course. But you can come in here and you can look at Agile project management. There's a bunch of different Agile courses, as well as many other courses. There's a ton of stuff on here. If you're doing something with motion graphics, you can come here and find a course on it. Photoshop, Visual Studio, tons of different things here that are all free for you. So you can really go nuts. So that's lynda.harvard.edu. And then Google. That's the last thing here is Google. You can Google any of this information. You can Google Agile. You can Google Agile methods. You can Google Kanban, which is what I'm sort of suggesting that you look at. And then there's Scrum, which is more of the heavyweight process. Kanban is more of the process. It's more like the process that we looked at with the Trello board and the work in progress limits. I'll show you quickly. I have an example. Let's see. Maybe this is not the right account. I have an example. That's the welcome Trello board. Okay, I don't have it here. I had at one point an example Trello board that was for Kanban. I don't seem to have it now. And it had like 10 columns on it, lots of different information. Let me just see if I can pull it up. Example Trello. Kanban. Oh, okay, yeah. So here's some images of an example Trello Kanban board. You can see if you Google this, you'll find there's a lot of different ways to configure Trello to do lots and lots of different kinds of work and projects. It's very adaptable to many different kinds of projects. So that's one of the nice things about it. All right. So I think that's all I have. I hope that at the minimum, this just gives you an idea that there's something out there that you can use to help you manage your Capstone project. If nothing else in this presentation has been helpful, just this one page right here sort of will at least get you pointed in the right direction to how can I use Agile methods to help me manage my Capstone project. All right, with that, I'm going to wrap it up. Good luck on your Capstone course. And if you have any questions about that, I'm going to put my name here, and my email is ericparker@harvard.edu. You can email me if you have an Agile question, or Jen about anything that related to this. All right. Take care.